Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, doing some more unpacking in Oregon videos for everybody. We are now on box 12. We're officially past the halfway point, and I'm going to get right to it. This box has a lot of games that I feel are underrated, and we'll go into that as we go through them. So, first one I want to bring out is Star Trek Catan. Now, Catan is a fine game. Catan is a game that a lot of people were introduced to the hobby by. I played Catan back when it was the rage. One of my friends introduced it to me, and board gaming didn't bite me at that time. I was very heavy into role-playing games. Catan was fun. It was not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't grab me and take hold of me like Pandemic did a couple of years later. So I wanted to have Catan in my collection because, as I said, it's not a bad game. It's a very good game to play with other people who are new to the hobby, and it has enough luck inside of it that the most skilled player or the person who's played it the most isn't guaranteed to win. So that makes it really good to play with brand new players to the hobby, younger players, or people who just want to know what this whole Catan thing is about. So since I wasn't planning on ever really getting into the whole Catan universe, buying all of the expansions and all of that stuff, I went ahead and picked up Star Trek Catan. Number one, the production values are amazing. Number two, it's Star Trek. And number three, I wasn't going to hop on the expansion bandwagon anyway, so it didn't matter if my copy of Catan wasn't going to be compatible with all of the future things that they were going to release. They have released some expansions for this. I believe they're fixed fancy maps that you can play on, but I don't feel any need to expand this. I think it's good as is, and I think I'll probably keep this one in my collection as my version of Catan. I'm considering getting Star Trek Panic as well for similar reasons. It's Star Trek, it's a great game to play with newer gamers, and I'm not looking to get on the expansion bandwagon, so the fact that it isn't compatible with any of the expansions for Castle Panic or Dead Panic, I don't know if Dead Panic has any, but it isn't compatible with any of those expansions, doesn't really matter to me. So my Star Trek shelf may get larger, but my Catan shelf probably never will. That being said, this is a really good version of Catan. It introduces these roles to the game, which are really neat. They do some pretty cool things, and you can't hang on to them. You have to give them up, and then other people can take them and use them against you. And it's just overall a really neat version of Catan. So that's pretty much all I'll say about that. Next, another underrated game, Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. So this game is kind of like two games in one. On the one hand, it's a resource management game where you are running your own gladiator school, Ludus, and you are recruiting gladiators and hiring, well, you're buying gladiators and slaves, which can be problematic for some people, but is very accurate to the source material. And you are bringing them into your house in order to try to win money and glory inside of the Roman Republic. And the second half of the game is gladiatorial combat, wherein you use the gladiators and the weapons and various things that you've gotten to try to win gladiatorial contests or win bets on those gladiatorial contests to further your position and increase the amount of money you have for auctions to buy better gladiators and better equipment later. It's based on the show that was on Starz. My wife and I were really big fans of the show on Starz, so we sought out this game. It is adult in its subject matter and its content. There's plenty of words in this game that you may not want said around children in your presence, depending on your personal opinion of bad words or swear words. But it's a game that, with other adults, I absolutely love. It scratches multiple itches at once. It's really fun if you're playing with people who don't take things personally. The auction mechanic inside of it works really well inside of the context of the game itself. Both auctioning things off and purchasing things, and then later on using money to bet on things means that your money pool is dependent upon, I could get the best stuff and get that and win that way, or I could make the best bets and win that way. Overall, it's really cool. It invites backstabbiness, and I think it's one of the best licensed games that's out there. This was the first release from Gale Force 9, who's since done a whole myriad of great games based on other people's intellectual property, and I'm really glad to have this one. I do not have any of the expansions, though I really want them. I'm hoping to get a hold of them at some point, but as it stands, the base game is really good. See, what's next? We'll continue that trend with another Gale Force 9 game, and this is Firefly the game. Firefly the game is really divisive amongst people for some reason. It's not a game that's everybody's cup of tea. It's a pick up and deliver game. But when it launched, there weren't a lot of ways to mess with the other people. So sometimes it came down to luck of the cards, or the specific order that you played things in, or where you started versus what jobs were on the board. But one or two of the expansions immediately addressed that, like the Pirates and Bounty Hunters expansion allowed you to start actually going and taking criminals from other people's crew and turning them in, and introduced much more confrontation inside of the game, and I think that's a good thing. It was fine out of the box. It was better with expansions, and each expansion I've added to it, whether it's new ships, new captains, new misbehaving cards, all the different things in here. Every expansion's made it better. I don't own all the expansions. I really want to get them, especially the Blue Sun and the, what's the other one? The Kalisa or something like that. I can't remember. They actually add to the size of the board and add additional contacts and a whole host of other new options to it. This game feels like Firefly to me. Like scraping around the universe with barely anything, trying to fulfill as many things as you can while not making anybody angry, and just really running around using the different crew members, some of whom are the main cast of the show, some of whom are just guest cast in the original show who are elevated to a higher status based on their apparent skills. It's a good game. I like it. It's another solid game based on an intellectual property from Gale Force 9, which doesn't surprise me anymore at this point. I do not own Homeworld or Sons of Anarchy, but both of them I've heard fantastic things about as well. So they're a company that I trust to work with other people's IP and produce games that are worth playing. So I said this one's kind of divisive. Some people feel it's too long for what it is. I think it really captures the show quite well, and I'm really glad to have it in my collection. I was hoping that some of the other Firefly games, like Shiny Dice or Legendary Encounters Firefly, or some of those might take the spot of this because it is harder to get to the table. But none of them have really scratched the same itch for me. They either don't feel like Firefly, or the artwork and everything is so unrecognizable that I can't really... It doesn't feel like Firefly to me at that point. And so that's why I really like this game, and hope to continue getting the expansions for this game so that I can play it going forward. Next game I've done a full video on, and I consider it one of the most underrated games of all time, and that is Sunrise City. Sunrise City is designed by Isaias Vallejo here, we see. He's more famous now at this point for Valeria Card Kingdoms, but this design right here, as far as I'm concerned, put him on the map. It's one of my wife and I's favorite games to play, two-player. It is gorgeous, full of Art Deco style artwork. The final board is this big stacked cityscape that you've built over time. It has a really clever scoring mechanism inside of it, wherein you're trying to get exactly to the top of the track. So there are 10 spaces. If you loop the track, you get 1 star, which is a point towards victory. If you land on the star, which is exactly 10, then you get 2 points towards victory. So there's it's not just about doing moves that get you the most points, it's about figuring out the moves that get you to exactly that point the most times. So there's a lot more strategy inherent in that. Some people still try to play it as, let's just loop the board as many times as possible, and if you're playing specifically to hit that star every time you can, you will win. That's kind of how it's set up. I think it's a great game. I have the expansion in here as well, which adds a little bit of randomness to it, some die rolling and stuff like that, Sunrise City Nights. It also adds, more importantly in my opinion, some single space tiles. Sometimes as you're building your city, you can get spaces that you just can't build on because it's a single space, and all of the previous buildings were 2 tiles. The expansion addresses that problem. Overall, I think it's a fantastic game. I really can't wait to play it again, actually, now. It's a game that my wife and I, like I said, absolutely love to play. I probably have more games of it logged with her than anybody else on the planet. But Sunrise City, big thumbs up from me, and very underrated in my opinion. The next game is not so underrated. It is King of Tokyo, Richard Garfield, yellow. This is the original version. They've since re-released it. This is the one with Cyber Bunny, which is one of the reasons I'm probably never going to get rid of it. While Cyber Kitty is awesome, Cyber Bunny was my favorite monster, so I don't really want to lose him just because I'm upgrading. King of New York also is pretty awesome. I've played it a couple times. I have never acquired it. Inside of here, though, I have the power-up expansion for the original, and I have the Halloween characters in here. And I don't know if I need more King of Tokyo. I think I have enough. I think King of New York would be fun. It's more appealing to me as a gamer. But this is the Yahtzee-style dice roller intro game for people who haven't played a lot of games. It falls into that same kind of space as, why do I have a copy of Settlers of Catan? Even if it's Star Trek Catan, why do I have Rise of Augustus? Why do I have Takenoko? Games that I can play with a larger subset of people or younger players, that won't overwhelm them, because I like gaming with all sorts of people, and so I need to have all sorts of games to facilitate that, and this is a pretty good one. I don't need to be completionist about it. It's not one of my favorite games, but it's a game that serves a very distinct and important purpose, and I really love the big giant monsters theme. So yeah, cool game, really glad that I have it, and we'll see about any of the other newer versions or expansions later on, but that's King of Tokyo. The last game from this box is a game that I have yet to play, and it's a game that I picked up on impulse, and it's because of the designer, and that is the XFiles game. This was designed by Kevin Wilson, who designed Android, the board game, which is, as I talked about in a previous video, one of my favorite storytelling games of all time. It's a gigantic, sprawling epic, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a masterpiece. It has a few flaws and things here that a second edition would address, if that ever happens. Probably won't, due to lack of sales, but never say never. That being said, The XFiles game is not the same type of game, but it's the same designer, and it takes a similar idea, and this time using the X-Files universe. Kevin poured over entire seasons of the game of the show in order to put them into the game. So, like, the missions that you go on as the agents inside this game correspond with the actual missions that they went on in the show, like the actual cases that they had to address. I haven't gotten this one to the table yet. It's gotten really mixed reviews from people. I'm hoping that, much like Firefly or Spartacus or some of the other games that I like that have gotten mixed reviews, that this one hits for me, even though it didn't for everyone else. But I haven't played it yet, so I don't know. Hoping to find some other X-Files fans who would be willing to sit down with me and play this one at some point. Because I really am looking forward to giving it a try. And that's the X-Files game. And that's the end of Box 12. So, we're going to go ahead and end the video here, and we'll move on to the next box. See y'all later.